Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I hope that you are in good health and holding up well in these trying period. I am Urmil Khurana from Nextdime, formerly known as SKP. I am responsible for the North India market, and I'm glad to be hosting this session today. Today's panel discussion is the concluding portion of our webinar series, What Gives CFO Sleepless Nights Amidst This Pandemic? As you all know, the fear is palpable. The current economy serves from a downward trend. The lockdown is getting over, and eventually we will all have to go back to our offices. And that is the one thing that we need to prepare for now. Given the nature of the pandemic, businesses will be different from now onwards. As we prepare for the lockdown to be lifted, we would need to tune our businesses in a manner which takes into account our current situation and challenges the traditional way of operating. We are all learning and evolving. This is such a unique situation that there is no guidebook that we can follow under these circumstances. Companies will need to take a holistic approach to restarting. So how can we navigate in the next few months as the restrictions are relaxed? What is the financial health of the companies? What is the state of mind of the consumers, of the suppliers? How quickly will the demand return? To discuss this and more today, we have with us finance experts from different industries to share their views and way forward. Thank you, ladies, Sandhya and Aprajita, for joining us. Thank you for your time. Our first panel member today that I would like to introduce is Aprajita Jethi Ahuja. She's the CFO of CX Advisors LLP, an investment advisory firm which has managed assets of over USD 600 million. Aprajita has served in the private equity industry for over 12 years. Her prior assignments were with EY and with the global fund Actis. She also serves actively on the board of 3 portfolio companies, helping them deliver their business plan and establishing processes around risk and mostly business and governance. Her professional commitments include increasing awareness about ESG practices. Our second panelist today is Sandhya Sriram, VP and Global Head, Audit and Risks from Wipro Enterprises. Earlier, Sandhya was with Wipro Technologies as the Global Head of Finance for Consumer Business Unit. And for nearly a decade, Sandhya has worked with Unilever in various roles, including business partnership, controllership, shared services, IT, project management, supply chain, etc. Sandhya has been recognized and awarded for her achievements and contribution in finance several times. In 2019, her name was listed in India's top 100 women in finance by Association of International Wealth Management of India. So thank you, ladies, and welcome once again. Let's begin. So my first question is to both of you. What has been your experience in the last 2 months? And Sandhya, let's begin with you.
Sure. Thank you, Urma. Thank you for the opportunity. It's really glad. I feel really glad being here and talking to people. We've been shut in within our houses for a long time. So this is a good way to connect. So on this, I want to start with a bit of a feminist take. This is like an inflection point for women. If you look at the top 2 reasons that hinder a woman from making progress, most women will list flexibility of work timing and location, especially spouse location versus where the company is, and support systems in the household. Now, this pandemic has really opened up the realization for how the family is extremely important in participating in running the household. And I'm not just talking about spouses, but even children have come forward. They are willing to do the housework, they're willing to help out. And especially the number of jokes and memes you see of men struggling with washing vessels and etc., etc. It really shows how deeply ingrained the gender roles are in our country, and how it took a pandemic to actually make people even realize what it is. So I think that a big shift can happen in how women can come to the workforce if companies continue to benchmark from these learnings. How can they create new practices and find solutions across locations, across type of jobs, across timings for women. So that's a big thing for me. I know it's a little feminist, but and sorry for that. But that's really a big one. Having said that, it is a very difficult time. Most businesses are struggling to forecast the future, how it's going to look like. For us, we are a consumption-based economy. A majority of our people will go into cash conservation cycle. By nature, India is a savings country. It's not a spending country, and we're not. The savings quotient is higher than the spending quotient. But whatever spending was happening, which was causing the economic boom in some form or whatever, flat, mid-flat, will now go into a standstill. So which means that it will have a complete domino effect on the entire value chain. I know we're going to talk about it more as we go through this panel, but for me, I think we have very challenging times ahead. That would be my summary.
So Prajita, what has been your experience?
Well, quite similar to what Sandhya had, and she's given a very nice, right introduction to this discussion. So, well, I'll just give a little bit of context on what my experience is from, because we are a private equity player, and what we do is we invest in mid-market companies, and which have a top line of around 200 to 500 crores. Now, these companies, we right now are around 10 companies, such 10 companies of dealing with this pandemic, and we were witnessing, and in whatever ways we could support as sometimes significant shareholders to majority shareholders, we were trying to support them. So while all tough times, we always wish they didn't come our way, had quite a bit of learnings for us. One learning which of course wasn't there earlier was the kind of efficiencies we saw. Some of our companies were under essential services, and the way they worked, the factories were open, the way they took care of their employees, how this pandemic, it was a tough time. There wasn't any communication, there wasn't any transportation. So arranging for all of that, right sizing, optimizing resources. So resource efficiency is something that we had never really focused upon. The second thing that came to forefront was that how well are the relationships? How well are your relationships? So whether those be relationships with your banks or with your employees or with your vendors, how far you could go potentially with these relationships and leverage them in such times. So these were two very big surprises, and the third is of course that for so much time we debate and we deliberate, and decision making is usually, at least culturally, is very slow in India. But this time came as a surprise. There was very swift decision making within with more institutional setups. You see that there's so much of a value chain and being agenda being brought to the fore, and things just there's a lethargy in the system to actually get something done. But here we saw that the swiftness in the decision making, and I think when it comes to facing an adversity, we guys are very adaptable. So in a way, I think it was very positive. It was very positive and immense learning phase for all of us.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is, while this was both of you, that while this was a very unique situation, never experienced before, and with companies struggling to forecast the future, but it was also a time of immense learning for the corporates, and most managed to respond quickly, whether it was working from home, setting up everything, or focus on preserving cash flow or managing expenses and all. Okay, so my second question, Aprajita, I will start with you. So how are the corporates coping up? Maybe a little more, you can elaborate a little bit more on it.
So I would say how corporates are coping up. I would go in this order. So first, of course, was the employee safety and protection. So first thing was that if you are open during the lockdown phase, how your employees should earlier people were not they weren't wearing masks. I'm talking about the lockdown phase 1, and educating them about protocols, how they have to deal with customers, because we were also invested in few of consumer companies. So that was the first part of it on how exactly we went around it. The second was that the anxiety level and the fear level, which was at the customer, so customer contact, customer communication, that had to be said that yes, we are there. That's the way we are preparing, and you will hear back soon from us. And we are prepared to face the pandemic. So confidence giving to the customers, which was secondly was very important. So once we've taken care of your employees, your customers, then of course, the tough part of it was the worst case scenario assessment, because the pandemic was the way it was spreading, the way it was the red zone and the orange zones and were getting defined. Uh, we had to prepare for worst case scenario, and worst case scenario would have mean, should we do a planning for 3 months, 6 months, what kind of supply disruptions, what kind of cash flow disruptions. So of course that a lot of discussion and debate went around assessing that. Then we went finally, of course, which is the most thing, and you mentioned, Urmil, was cash flow planning. The lockdown phase 1 happened in end of March. That is the time your payments, all payments are due. So you piled up for the payments, you conserve cash, because you know that your next April and May are going to be worse hit, and pandemic won't be in control. So how should we exactly conserve cash? Where all do we have the levers? Whom all we can speak to? And I just mentioned earlier that this was the time to leverage all your relationships and figure out that is there any goodwill that can help you in going through this. Then came, of course, the lever was, how do you really optimize your revenue? By optimizing revenue, we were in different ways in which you could create several other revenue generating units within the short time, because for some of the companies this also proved that this also opened up new phases and new ways to serve your consumers. So were we prepared for that? So your action had to be built in very quickly. Then, of course, we had to arrange for, in this order, necessary resources, where exactly we want to spend the very, very precious cash in. Um, is it, of course, is it statutory dues were important? Then you had your vendors, payroll discussions. How would the employees take, if at all there are deferrals, or if at all waivers, and if at all we need to do something differently. So how much trainable they are. And lastly, we did a lot of ideating on the future, and the future, because the future was it limited to 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? Against it, how we would cope up if it continued, and the best, and it was everywhere, right? That 12 months, survive 2020, this is the way to go. So I think everything was done with a view to have a plan till FY21. So I think this is the way we went around. This was our approach across most of our portfolio companies. And touchwood, it has shown significantly good results.
Okay, thank you, Prajita. And Sandhya, so what was your experience?
I think Aparajita covered it fairly comprehensively. So I just want to add a little bit, masala to this. When companies went through the lockdown phase, it was really, like the 300 BC warriors were fighting a war because you didn't know what was hitting you. Your distribution. There is a rhythm that companies were, at least the companies that were able to open. Now I'll come to companies that weren't able to open, but that were able to function, essential goods or feeder to essential goods, etc. There's a rhythm with which you work. Your entire plan is set in that fashion. And suddenly everything that you took for granted is, is volatile. Whether your workers will come to the factory tomorrow, whether a truck will come, whether you'll have people to put stocks into the truck, whether the truck will reach the destination or get stuck somewhere. What are the 25 different types of passes you have to get for the truck to reach? Even if it reaches the warehouse, can it reach your customer? Even if it reaches your customer, can it reach your consumer? Will the shop open? Will the shop receive? Will the customer come and buy? What I really felt is sometimes the kind of emphasis we give to technology, saying I have a super automated supply chain, the machine will tell me when to wake up and when to brush my teeth. From there, really the power and spirit of people, it came to light. You see, there are so many videos every consumer company is posting, and nobody said that my BCP worked, my risk management practice helped me, my this helped me. They all are talking about the power of their people, how people have come together and made whatever they were able to accomplish real. And the spirit of people is really what I cherish and admire, and I really love those videos that everybody is posting. It's brought to light what our people can do. Not that we want to be in this situation, but that's something that I really admired. Now, of course, there was a second category of companies which really could not operate during the lockdown, and they were totally shut, and they got into complete cash conservation mode, how to shave off costs. But again, there came the spirit of innovation, and Aparajita spoke about it. We had paint companies that started making sanitizers. We had auto companies that started making ventilators. There are we never could imagine the speed. Aparajita nicely spoke about this, how the speed of decision making, the agility, but also the spirit of innovation, to be relevant, to be able to bring something that can reach and create value to their consumer, to the market. I really feel that came to light. Now, also, a lot of companies which were functional, they were able to work from home. For example, tech companies, etc. They were able to hold fort, hold operations. But many companies, even if they were operating, are at a cusp of a new normal. And I think it's a cliche to say cusp of a new normal always, but really it is. A lot of what we assumed, the demand pattern, customer pattern, spending behavior, how we will sell. So for example, for a tech company, a lot of focus will be on how we are able to build relationship with the customer, see what projects are coming, how we are able to shape demand, how we are able to, but the customer themselves don't know what they're going to do in the next 3 months. So then in that context, how am I going to be relevant? So there is a huge agility that is required for most companies, or for every company in today's situation. But from what we have seen people do, in a span of 3 months, the kind of innovations they could bring, or the kind of transformation they could bring, I am only positive that we'll find a way. I continue to be optimistic.
I completely agree with you, Sandhya. COVID-19 has changed the way the businesses are run. It's altering management practices. And I completely agree with you about the people and their strength and their coming together. We are a very, very resilient nation, and I think we will overcome this. Which brings me to my third question. As you said, there are companies which are going through challenges, and there are companies who found opportunities within this situation also. So what, according to you, Sandhya, first will be the key opportunities and challenges for corporate India once the lockdown is over?
Yeah. So I think, so I start, of course, with the belief that I'm an optimist and believer in the power of the human will. And the shape of the market will change. The economics of everything will change. Today, or rather yesterday, I used to spend $1,000, go to a movie for a family of 4. Now I will spend $1,000 per year to watch the same movie on Amazon. There is that fear factor. It's going to take a long time to go, but my behaviors are changing. I know that companies are releasing movies in Amazon and I will watch it. So then the downstream impact on the movie industry will be very different, because what Amazon can pay is what movies can afford. And therefore, first, the industry will probably find cheaper ways of doing things. So maybe technology will play a bigger role. Maybe they'll not pay 100 crores to an actor. Maybe they will pay differently. They will also find various ways of connecting with the audience, and movies may not only be the format. And I am just taking movie as an example, but from a longer term point of view, even assuming the economy opens, even assuming all of us come back to office with a mask, I think one of the innovations that they definitely need in the mask space is masks which which can still carry the lipstick and don't take away. But then, maybe innovations will come in that space. But in the new normal, the way people interact with the services that they consume or the goods that they consume will change, both from a quality point of view, the capability point of view, and from a quantity point of view. And therefore, to be relevant in that, people will have to transform. It will be difficult answers. It may result in certain, because what happens is that while you may have a generalist that may have an option to adapt, they will have feeders, and some of those feeders will be very specialists. There will be certain people who will only make one component and they'll make it in a repeated fashion, and that will be one MSME, and who will be very dependent on that larger industry to consume that one component that they know how to make. And if that demand goes out, the larger corporate will still figure out to make something else. But for the MSME to find new capex, be able to invest, find to make a different type of item which will be relevant in the new context, will take time, will take agility, will go through, I think, a lot of pain. But we will have to go through that journey, and all of us will find a way to fit ourselves in the piece of the in the puzzle in some form eventually. There are also challenges in terms of the way our labor has worked in our country. It's a very draconian, at one end, if you hire a person in the factory, you can never let the person go. For whatever reason, the labor laws are draconian. And at the other end, you have a host of labor who are so unorganized that they are just, for anybody to take, to exploit. And we've never found that middle ground on what is the right labor equation for this country. And now is the time that people are realizing that it's not going to work. You didn't take care of your migrant laborers. They've all gone back. Now you don't know, when you start construction back, who's going to come and do the work for you. And now people are thinking, okay, should I provide housing for migrant labor? Should I provide amenities for migrant labor? But we've had we not been so capitalist, and had we thought about this a little before, we'll have probably had a more equitable economy. So I think some of those changes will also happen. We'll figure some of the mistakes we've done in taking certain areas, people for granted. It also would mean that certain segments would be more exploited than ever. You don't know, because there are certain people who have developed skills that are relevant to certain jobs. For example, tech. We have a industry of engineers who come out from colleges and who are specialists in certain type of work only. And when the available demand of that work shrinks, they have to relearn to new types of work. And therefore, during that period of learning and relearning, they may be taken advantage of from a salary point of view, from a placement point of view. So it will be a difficult journey. And I can speak about hundreds of things like this, but it will be a difficult journey. And we will have to come out at the other end with resilience. And I'm going to say this again and again because I really believe in this. But yes, that's my take.
So Aparajita, what are your views on the opportunities and challenges coming out of this COVID situation?
I mean, Urmil, how I agree with Sandhya that we were taking a lot of things for granted, but for this particular question, I'll just try to answer it from the industry where we represent, is the investment landscape. So from capital availability point of view, this pandemic, whether it has of course a lot of challenges, right? But in terms of opportunities, the IPO markets, those would have completely dried up. There's not any left in the markets. Even within the assets, which were the IPO-able assets, which you would define as good assets, and there were so many DRHPs lined and they were raising equity. Some of them already had too much of debt and were thinking to get some, would breathe easy. So those companies, of course, they're going to face a little bit more tougher time. In terms of availability of capital, then comes players like us, which is private equity. There again, there's going to be a paucity of capital because there'll be 3 or 4 sectors, which will be highlighted: IT, pharma, allied sectors, and of course telecom. But those are very large ticket size transactions. But I would say for mid-market companies, there will be very less avenues. Also, the government is also focused, and rightly so, on MSMEs. So it also has to see on which is in the bottom of the pyramid. So somewhere in the middle, of course, there's going to be a little bit of crunch over there. Now, in terms of this is against equity, but at the same time, in terms of if I look at debt, that requires government intervention clearly, because banks with these 2 extended moratoriums, they would be wondering whether they should be opening new accounts, giving, or even topping up their existing loans. So where is the capital going to come from? And so would ECBs, because had it been something very localized, then you can expect that you could possibly raise capital from other geographies. But I think stress is just everywhere. So where to expect help from? Though I think government will be opening, and of course we'll come back to that later. So there should be something, maybe the public sector banks, if they do their bit, and as what the government plan, if they can provide capital at least till FY21, and let's hope. And of course, as Sandhya mentioned so many times, and now I have really, she's transmitted her optimism to me. So with this cautious optimism, I think if we can get some capital to survive this particular phase, then we are home, and I think we can expect for better times next year with so much of learnings. So
yeah, Aparajita, we'll discuss about government intervention. I agree with you. We'll discuss it a little later. But I also agree with both Sandhya and you that the impact on the businesses is real. The consumer demand patterns are going to change. So while some industry sectors will have a stronger defense and there will be newer opportunities, the others will continue to struggle to a constantly, the new normal, as you say, Sandhya, is also constantly shifting each day. But I think inventiveness, and to go by what Sandhya's optimism, I would also like to adopt her optimism and say inventiveness and adaptation will open up new growth areas. And I think we should be all right. Then after the opportunities and challenges, I come to the next question. So what, according to both of you, should be the key internal priorities for organizations now to capitalize on rebound? The internal priorities, as we've been discussing, will certainly need to change. So what going forward? Aparajita, would you like to go first, or Sandhya? Aparajita?
Okay, I'll go first. And then Sandhya can make my response interesting. So it's always Sandhya to back you to make your response far more looking interesting.
It's good to get diverse perspectives. So it's interesting, to hear diverse perspectives. And you two are from two completely different industries. So that's what makes this more interesting.
Okay, so how key internal priorities? I mean, I'm sure everybody's going to be doing that, but I'll just say whatever we found, something that we were doing differently than what we were doing otherwise. So to start with, of course, you make these business plans, which are these annual business plans, and these are the 3 monthly business plans, and 6 monthly, and these annual. I think that monitoring quickly moved from quarterly to daily. It was weekly, and then it was really daily, and from daily it became hourly. So that was the kind of, like a hawk you were looking at. If at all, will first address the supply constraint, and then you see whether there is a response of a demand. Did you match it? So that, of course, was a business continuity plan, was something that was that why, what's going to happen to us? No, we're such a good business, this and that. But even the largest of the businesses realized that they could not survive for even, they didn't have planned that if they'll be shut down for 2 months, what are they going to do? So and neither did we. And Sandhya did mention that we all have these risk frameworks and everything, but something so strikingly affecting us, we really weren't prepared for it. So yeah, one, of course, business continuity, but business continuity plan was very difficult to make. That again, which I've mentioned again, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. How much is the pain going to last and long for? The second thing, of course, was which I've already shared in my last question. How I responded was in the fundraising part. On fundraising, though it's a very tough market, and I did discuss that, but creating buffers and not to be really on the edge is important. The valuations are going to be unattractive, definitely. But there are investors, because the money is not just evaporated from the system, right? There people have money. Deposits are growing, so there is money in the system, and there are investors who want to invest. So valuations won't be attractive, but I think at the same time we have to be more rational and more pragmatic around valuations. And if at all there are opportunities, create those kind of little buffers, create that, get the right debt equity structure in place. I think banks have responded very differently in these times. The banks have been, at least they've come out with a very clear response, what they want and what they expect, ready to support, because they've taken exposure, and of course with their existing accounts, they've been empathetic, and then whatever they could do, I think most of the banks have been, most of the private banks have been, and public sector banks both have cooperated. Other than that, it's something that was a lot, and I think it's a little controversial topic. I don't know whether I should talk about it, but there was a lot of right sizing and optimizing that was happening. And Sandhya did mention in a very briefly about, because we were studying about Industrial Dispute Act, because there was, do we need as many people? Because there's going to be limited operations. So what is the right way, and what is the most humanitarian way? What is the most empathetic way to actually deal with, if at all you've got no option left than to write? What are the most creative ways to do it? So if at all you've got, can you share a single job with 2 employees, right? So that there is employment created for both of those, for at least 2 people. If at all, what is the minimum sustenance that you can give? What is the kind of deference? So there was a lot of relationship that, and credibility, and how much your employees trust you. So those questions are very subjective and completely not looked at, and this was the first time assessing such kind of our relationship. Something like, I mean, this was also which I saw was a lot of people, and Sandhya would agree, in IT, leaving offices, a lot of commercial workspaces getting vacated, and is work from home the real new? So that was one thing that was again very different, but of course I would say there's no right answer to it. but we had to find solutions around it, and we would have to continue to do that because the stress is not for till the lockdown. It's going to be another 6 to 8 months till actually the demand revives back. Other things that we were looking at was a lot on the working capital management. Both from the perspective of receivables. So you might have had the best of the customers, but there was stress at institutional and very good clientele of yours. So innovative ways, you might have not considered factoring earlier. You never had your problem with your receivables. So should we go for something like that? Vendor management, how much would they be willing to pay? And I think this whole thing of MSME support also would potentially help in seeing what kind of vendor support that can come. And lastly is which is very important, but I'm touching on the last point, is extremely important, is communication, both to customers and this, because anxiety level is very high. Everybody is asking you what are the right steps. Will you be able to, from your employee wants to know, will you be able to continue? Will I get my salary? How much will I get? If at all there'll be waiver, deferral. Your vendors want to know when are you going to make the payment. Your customers want to know when are you going to deliver. B2B businesses or B2C businesses all across. But there's one thing is that if you are transparent enough, and if you provide even a little bit of certainty that by this time, by this way, we will find a solution, that resolves quite a bit of, and brings some kind of credibility to your relationship. So I think in no particular order, but randomized way, these were the kind of focus areas that we looked at.
How about you, Sandhya?
So I think Aparajita covered very comprehensively. I don't think I can add much to what she said. But maybe from a behavior point of view, a lot of learnings have come from the lockdown. Many of them Aparajita articulated. We must not lose those learnings. Get back and, oh, now I'm back to normal and I can leave behind whatever I learned, the ways I adopted. I should not leave that behind. The other one is that the agility and nimbleness that the situation has taught us, again, it's learnings. But some of it we have to capitalize on. And my best example is, NASA and SpaceX. NASA couldn't afford to send a manned mission to space. They didn't have the money, and SpaceX figured out at a significantly lower cost. And here we go. First time a private enterprise has helped NASA put a man on space. We could never imagine something like that. So there's that opportunity if you can find answers. From a global dynamics point of view, I think supply chain will go through a lot of transformation, if I can use that word, because today companies or going forward, companies will be torn between protectionism, localization, and capability. More and more governments will incentivize to manufacture in the country, but you may have already set up significant amount of skill and capability elsewhere, and it may be very difficult to replicate in the short term, and overall cost of delivery and how do you maintain yourself competitively may go through some amount of rigid. Companies have to find ways, maybe things like vertical integration. Some parts you may be bringing in finished components, maybe you may bring semi-finished, you may still do something in the country. So they still need to figure out what is the right supply chain model. I think talent paradigm, I think spoke about it earlier, it will change, and there will be a lot of, so in some form I think I can also give the debit Aparajita for the money or capital that's available to throw at talent. In some form we've got a little lazy with talent. We want to find somebody who can fit the job, somebody would have trained them, give them little more money and bring them on board. I think some of that will change, because each of our needs will get very, very unique. And some of these experiences are not already available for people to, fit. So we have to consciously invert in augmenting skills and knowledge from a talent point of view. And how do we develop that innovation quotient in our talent to respond to situations? I think some of those, we have to redefine the way we manage talent. And like everybody says, and this is the most overused phrase, cash is the real reality, So all the boardroom presentations, which were earlier showing sales, margins, customer acquisition, ABCD, I think they'll all now start with the slide of how much cash I have, how much I will make, how much I will spend, where will I end at the, at the end of this. I think companies will move, at least in the short to medium term, to more focus on cash creation, and then to larger KPIs that we've looked at. So that's I think that's what I feel.
And also the business continuity plans and things like, health and well-being of customers, employees, they will start getting included. And I also heard, I really liked what Aprajita said about communication with the stakeholders, open, honest, transparent communication. While it was always important, but this will be vital now. And certainly, of course, cash is becoming king. Okay, so that brings me to the last and the most important question of the day. What do you both believe in terms of the government relaxations and incentives, etc.? To what extent will they help in stabilizing the economy? And let me start with you, Sandhya.
So we are a consumption-driven economy. So therefore, getting demand back is the key to getting growth back. I am supportive of the fact that the entire thinking is around bringing liquidity. Now, I am not going to comment on whether the measures are adequate or inadequate, or who could have done what better, how. I don't think I don't want to comment on that, because for the size and the scale of our nation, anything is inadequate. We are a very complex and very diverse nation. We can never be complete in anything we do. So I'd like to take the measures of whatever the government is doing at face value. And how do we make it successful? The real key is the speed of implementation. When a minister comes and says that I am building X kilometers of road today and I want to make it 2X, it should not be a press speech. He need to have an action plan, like the way, we have our GNOs and we write every quarter saying, this was my GNO and this is what I achieved. And, that's how our performance is measured, and that's how our worth in the organization is in some form measured. We have to have that level of diligence and execution rigor. I think that's really, really important. Whether we call the measures more or less or whatever we have, if the government can implement with speed the measures that they have called out, the new projects, even for example, like Aprajita was saying, capital is available, but the execution of ensuring that the money goes into the hands of the people so they can start. So the entire scheme around MSME, how well are we able to execute? How are we able to build confidence in the banking system to lend? How are we able to create the right measures by which we are able to ensure that the money that has been lended is going into the intended utilization? So I guess there is for me, I would not sit in an ivory tower and comment who has done or who has not done. I would really hold the government to show accountability to what they have said they will do and make it happen. Since this is like the last question, I want to conclude some form. This is like many of you would have seen that video that's doing the rounds, YouTube, WhatsApp, etc. That how an eagle gets a second life. It really pulls out its feathers, pulls out its skin, and That's how it comes to be illegal. Like that phase for many of us right now. There is a great opportunity ahead of us, but getting there is going to be extremely excruciating. There is going to be a lot of effort. We have to stay focused and resilient as a country and as a engine, machinery. We have to focus. The government, the various organizations connected have to focus single-mindedly on execution, on implementation. I think that's my summary.
Yeah. Before I come to you, Aprajita, let me welcome Radha. Radha has just joined us. Radha, third panelist, CFO of Ashirvad Pipes, a group company of Alexia. Radha, you are in just time to answer our last question, which is in terms of government incentives and government relaxations. To what extent do you think they are going to be helpful?
Okay, first of all, very sincere apologies. I had a bit of an unpleasant event. I somehow managed to get myself into a room. I was a little stuck. I'm very, very sorry for that. But not to take away the time. See, the government incentive in a corporate sector, so far we haven't found anything helping me. You know, we are a manufacturing company, we do 3,000 plus crore turnover. What has it helped me now? Nothing, except that we got refund of our income tax, you know, which was anyway due. Our assessment got over last year, which was delaying, and the money came in. Beyond that, maybe a lot of people, migrant laborers, they all got a lot of support from government, but we didn't realize in the corporate sector, because we're not MSME, any great favor. The interest rates have not come down for our borrowing. I would somehow feel if government gets into simplifying the corporate taxes, GST, income tax, export incentives, if they simplify the returns, the audit process, it will save a lot of money for us. It will save, it will ensure, people can also get back to doing business. While they talk about Atmanirbhar, we also need a lot of foreign investment. I believe India is still not a technologically, high-end innovative country. Still, the innovations happen in US and Europe. So, in my own company, we are a European company. A lot of money they have invested in acquiring this company, and to me, that helped for us to scale up. We have onboarded many more workers into our factory. We have created 2 more factories. So the foreign money really helps us. Somehow we should not stop inflow of foreign currency into India, stating, Atmanirbhar. We will encourage, government should help, encourage foreign investment, foreign subsidies, and give a lot of facility for local manufacture so that we can create a lot of employment here. The last one I would like a government support is to make unskilled and skilled labor available at this point of time. Due to COVID, a lot of people have gone back to their original places. A lot of factories in south of India dependent on the migrant laborers, and we have resumed our operation, but we are now trying to face a labor shortage. We don't have, even when you say plumbing, machine turning, the skilled labor available in south. So they must improve ITI curriculum and make available, develop indigenous laborers. So that will facilitate easy reverse movement of migrant laborers also.
So what I'm hearing you all say is that while government did help in addressing immediate liquidity issues, and government's efforts are directed more towards the MSME, rightly so, but there are other sectors and other areas which need support, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you, Radha. The industry that I am from, tourism and hospitality, is one of the worst impacted industry. Hotels are closed and they have high fixed costs. That sector is facing serious survival issues. And I mean, that sector can certainly do with a huge chunk of support from the government. And
Thank you.
so sorry, Radha, we would have loved to have heard your views on some of the several other discussion points that we had, but unfortunately, we would also like to take a few questions. So we'll need to hear from you at some other point of time. So dear listeners, if you have any questions for our panelists, please leave them in the chat box and we'll be happy to address them now, or we can get back to you if there is possibility of time. Let me see if there is still time. We can take a couple of questions. Otherwise, this brings us to the end of today's session. I'm very thankful to all our participants and panel members for your time. And as the panelists suggest, companies which recognize the opportunities and modify their business model can actually grow. Businesses will need to learn some key tactics which will make their companies stand up and out during these tough times. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining in. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Urmil. Thank you, Prajna, Sandhya.
We have time
Thank you,
for one or
everyone.
two questions, so I'm just